Hi, my name is Katy, and I am a survivor of child sexual abuse and incest. I grew up with my mom and my two brothers. My father, he was a salesman, so even when he was still married to my mom, he was always gone. I never really saw him. So they got separated when I was 3, divorced when I was 5. I think it was around when I was 4. That is when the abuse started. So my mom, she was super nice. She didn't want it to seem like she was kicking my dad to the curb. And she helped him find a house that was really nice. And we all went over there. We planted flowers and we did up the garden nicely so that it felt like it was another home. My mom, she very easily could have gotten full custody, but she wanted to be extremely fair. She let our dad have weekend visits where we would go over there. When it first started, I didn't really know that it was anything bad. It started with, he had asked me to go to nap time with him, which I had never done that before. And he never physically hurt me. And so I just didn't really think anything of it. The abuse happened, I can remember, several times, very, very detailed. I didn't really process it until I was about 10. I was at my soul sister's house, and she's super sensitive. She was just staring at me in her kitchen. We're eating cereal, and she's like, "Did something happen to you when you were a child?" Like, she just saw through me, and I started crying, and I told her, I thought it was a dream. But then I realized no child can come up with those things, And for so long, I took responsibility for it. I thought that I was the one that initiated it for some reason. But I know that that's not true. So once my soul sister kind of brought that to my attention, I talked to her about it. I didn't talk to my brothers about it. I didn't talk to my mom about it. I definitely didn't talk to my dad about it. When the abuse was happening when I was 4, when my soul sister brought it up to me, she asked if something had happened to me, and I had that memory of where I thought it was a dream. The dream that I had, or the memory that I had, was that I had a dream as a child of where I was in the bathtub and he was like standing over him and I peed and he drank my pee, which is like really gross. But I told him about this dream, and then from there some more stuff happened. But I think that honestly I wouldn't have had that dream had something not happened prior. So I know that something happened prior. Well, so when I told him about that dream, he wanted to try it. So during nap time, instead of me standing over him and peeing, because that would be messy, he had me pee into a cup, and then he tried to drink it, which was gross, and he spat it out. And then instead, he had me get on his bed, and I was laying on my stomach, and I didn't really know what a vagina was. I just thought I had my pee hole and my poop hole, And so I don't know if he was actually performing like oral sex on me, or if it was just, in my mind, I thought it was licking my butthole, which he had told me that he was going to do something that I would like, which of course your body has a natural reaction to things, and it wasn't anything that was hurting me. I had never been exposed to that before. So I didn't really question it. Some other things that he did, which I ended up writing in the letters that I wrote him, because I wanted him to know what I remembered, because he thought I didn't remember. He told me to lick his penis like a lollipop. And so I know on several occasions he would have me perform oral sex on him. I don't really know what else happened. There was never any penetration. And I honestly, it's those few encounters that I recall. I don't know if my mind has blocked some out. I mean, it obviously blocked out the first one. When it got to middle school, some people get more hypersexual, or some people don't. They go the opposite. And I was somewhere in the middle. I was constantly boy crazy. During middle school, I wasn't promiscuous, but I did a lot of like sexting and sending pictures to a lot of people, which in turn, didn't help my reputation. But I was constantly reaching out to all these guys, and I got called a stalker, I think in 7th grade, because I was texting somebody and they wouldn't reply right away, and so I would just text a bunch. But it was because of that abandonment, needing the validation, all that stuff. 16, my soul sister and I snuck out of my house after homecoming, junior year. We got picked up by this guy that she liked, and he had his 4 friends with him. And so we went to their house and we're drinking vodka straight out of a bottle. I think it was a 2-liter bottle. It was a giant bottle. I remember they put on music. I think they told me to take my top off, so I was kind of dancing. I was like kind of into that because I'm like, okay, all these guys, are staring at me. They think I'm hot, cool. And I was also really insecure at this time. I was a little bit heavier, and I just wasn't secure in myself. I really needed that validation. And then I black out. I wake up. I'm on my knees by a dresser, and all the 5 guys are standing around me, and I heard from people that apparently I had performed oral sex on all of those people. And then I black out, and then I wake up the next morning to my best friend throwing her phone and my phone at my face, calling me because I waltzed on my period, which I guess it worked out that I was a virgin because I was able to cover up the blood being everywhere by saying it, I had slept with the guy that she liked, and I don't remember it. And for a long time, I thought I was trying to rationalize. I was trying to convince myself, well, I must have been into it. Like, I know how I get, but at the same time, if you are going unconscious, it's rape. It's rape. And I remember the next day, I was texting him, asking him if I enjoyed it. The next year, I met my first real boyfriend. 2.5 years of a great relationship. He cheats on me. I take him back. It's a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of suicide threats, a lot of constantly yelling, degrading, demeaning, telling me I'm selfish, even though I was doing everything that I could to take care of him, which is very similar to my relationship with my dad. And I think that I happen to be seeking that familiar energy. When that whole relationship came crumbling down, because that's the whole reason I decided to even confront my dad. That's the whole thing that brought it to my attention that this is actually an issue. Well, okay. He had proposed while we were at Electric Forest. I think it was like 2014, 2015. And he was on 10 hits of he just started rambling on, and he didn't even have a ring. He didn't get down on one knee. I don't even necessarily care about the ring, but he didn't get down on one knee. He didn't do like any sort of formal gesture. Like, he was just kind of spun out and rambling, and I wanted to listen to this set, but I had driven across multiple states with him, and I had been with him for like 5 years, and I said yes, because what else was I gonna say? I loved him. Like, even though in my heart I knew that it wasn't gonna be it wasn't gonna be a healthy relationship, I said yes. Some other things prior had gone on where he would just be mad at me for many different things. He had gotten mad at me. Like, I think it was because I was starting to pull away, and he maybe could tell that I wasn't like fully in love with him like I was before, and I understand that must not feel good. So I get it. But he decided to drink half a bottle of Jack Daniels and come to my work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's knocking on the kitchen door, and he wants his ring back, which is rightfully his. And I'm like, take it. I do not have time for this. I am making poached eggs. That's a second-by-second thing. Go. Leave. Get out of here. And so then at that point, he takes the ring. He's still not leaving, but I have to bring some of the food over to one of the other houses. It's 2 little houses that are side by side. And so I'm bringing that food over. I'm bringing the cart back, and I see that he has smashed this bottle in the alleyway, which there are resident rooms on looking. So at any point, any of the residents could have looked out and seen this, which would have been terrifying, especially if they have dementia or Alzheimer's. And he had smashed the bottle. He had sliced his arm open from his elbow to his wrist, and he had smeared blood all over my car, and he had written in his own blood on my work door, "Love is a lie." And it was at eye height, but there was so much blood that it had trickled down and pulled at the ground. That's how much blood he had used, and he wrote "Love is a lie," and this is the person that I thought was my everything. And that was just so traumatic. And then my manager showed up. She had cops. He's trying to give me the ring back. And I'm like, no. After that breakup, I went through a deep depression. So I think this is around when I was 22. While I'm going through that depression, not respecting myself, dealing with all of that, my mom, I had just moved with her into another town. It was so close to the town I was just in, but it was kind of nice to be in a new town. I had some mornings where I was just like, sadness would just well up. I would just cry all the time. I would just wake up crying. And I decided that I needed to put myself in therapy. So I looked at my insurance card. I called the number on the back of it, and I was just sobbing. And I'm like, I need help. Please, like, just help me locate someone in my area. Honestly, the therapist, I didn't really think I gained much from it. I've done so much self-reflection on everything. I see things clearly. And shortly after I start to go to therapy, I decide I need to confront my dad. But I called him. I didn't give him any context. I just said, Dad, if you want to have a relationship with me at all, you need to fly out to Colorado and see me. And he didn't ask any questions. He said okay, and he scheduled it. So he came out. He wanted to make it seem like a normal visit, even though I feel like he had to have known in the pit of his stomach that there was something going on, because my tone of voice, I was very direct. There was no sugarcoating anything. So he came out. He didn't have a good relationship with either of my brothers really either. Like, my brothers had already had their own opinion of my dad. They still wanted to keep a regular relationship, but think he's a jerk. Then he made us all go out to dinner with him, like nothing was wrong. Then I was going to be the one to give him a ride to the airport. So it was at that time when I'm driving that I decide to confront him. I honestly don't remember exactly what I said. I think I just said, I want you to know that I remember everything. I remember what you did to me when I was a kid. And it's not okay, and I need a real apology. Because I thought I had built it up in my head on this pedestal that when I had confronted him, that then he would feel so much remorse and he would apologize and we'd continue having a relationship that would be healthier than ever, But no, instead, and it's funny because he doesn't remember saying this because I had talked to him about it. He doesn't remember saying this, but I remember it clear as day. He said, I want you to know I never thought of it as abuse. I never had malicious intent. You were the perfect playmate. And I was shocked. I think I was silent for a while. And then, me being me, I've always been very gracious and understanding and kind. I said, thank you. And thank you that it wasn't worse. Because I know people that have been through worse. And I'm grateful for the things that you did do when you did try. I was still showing him mercy, even at the time when I was pleading for one bit of him having a heart. And he just all over everything. And in such a disgusting thing, too. Being a 4-year-old, being your daughter, nonetheless, being a perfect playmate for sexual activity? It just made me furious, but I didn't show that fury right then. I kind of internalized it. Maybe a few weeks later, he had tried sending me a little text being like, how's it going? Just trying small chat, which I was not about. I was like, no, I'm not going to do small chat. All I want to hear is a apology. So after one of those texts, I had gotten so mad and I just cussed him out and I gave him a 1-week ultimatum. I said, you have 1 week to write me an adequate apology, or you are out of my life forever. You will never meet my children. You will never be a part of anything. You're out. In response to that, he had written me a letter. Look at how long that is. See how short that is? For a whole lifetime worth of things that he could have said. It said, Dear Katy, we traded text messages earlier today and your anger was so great that I decided not to continue to fan the flames. Your last message said I had 1 week to apologize or you're writing me out of your life forever. You certainly don't lack clarity. No, I don't. I'm sorry that you and I have never had the kind of father-daughter relationship that would have provided you with a good role model for what the men in your life would have to measure up to. I'm sorry that I have not been a father that you could feel safe with and respect. You deserved better and I failed you. No words of apology can undo the wrong or change the past. There is an empty place in both of our lives that resulted from my poor choices so many years ago. Anger is always available to fill these spaces, but anger is a poor choice compared to love. Which, even though he's apologizing, he's still finding ways to put salt in the wound. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I pray that there can be a healing of old wounds. You have taken steps by getting therapy, and I will do the same. Love, Dad. After all of that, I had been working on a response email to that little one that my dad had done. And I had been working on it for a couple weeks, really just wanting to get all the details, all of everything in there, and make sure, because this was my plan, that this is the last thing I would ever say to him. I wanted everything that I ever had to say in that letter. And I was actually on a hike with a friend talking about everything. And then I received a passive-aggressive email from my dad saying something in regards to me not wishing him a happy Father's Day. Keep in mind all of the stuff that had transpired earlier. So then I decided that I would send the letter that day. And I did. And it's really long. And in it, I did really bold, large of his quote, the never thought of it as abuse, you were the perfect playmate. I'm in therapy, right? I confronted my dad. Now I find out that the granddaughter is going to be born. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to let the mom know. So I reach out to her. I tell her everything. I tell her that I'm going to give my dad the opportunity to tell his wife before anybody else says anything. So she's the first person to know. Then I gave my dad the opportunity to tell his wife. He said that he did. I checked in with her and I'm like, I don't think he would necessarily show you or tell you the whole truth. So if you'd like to read my letter that I wrote to him, you can do that. And so she did. And then I didn't hear from her for 2 years. Now, we'll send little videos or memes or something on Instagram. But that must have been really, really hard for her. So I completely understand. They get divorced. I'm still in therapy at this time. So at this point, my mom had been going to her therapist. I had been going to my therapist. I had prefaced that I'm going to tell her news that is really, really big. Because I just didn't want her to be caught off guard. My mom's really strong, but I was viewing her as very fragile. We had scheduled the day. It was going to be on May 4th, 2017. That was 19 years in the waiting. And I told my mom, and she responded better than I could have imagined. There was a lot of crying, but I was so worried about her taking guilt for it. But I had to reassure her that I didn't let her know. If I wanted her to know, I would have told her. In my mind, I was protecting her. I was protecting my father. I was protecting some type of relationship that I was keeping with both of them. After telling my mom, that really helped our relationship. It was in 2020, December 20th, 2020. That's when my dad wrote his actual long letter. And so in those quiet times in between those years, there wasn't much communication. If there was, it was him trying to reach out with those little short, small chat communications where I was just telling him, F off, don't want to talk to you unless you got something real to say. And so because of me constantly saying that, he decided that he would write his letter. And it's a long one. He actually did put some thought into it. However, it was a lot of self-validation where he's the victim of his life. He tells me about him being a bedwetter when he was younger and about, other things. But in it, he mentions that. So I thought that the abuse had started when I was 4. Apparently, he had always had weird, sick thoughts because when my parents decided they weren't going to have kids anymore, it was easiest for my dad to have a vasectomy because my mom had had 2 cesarean births with my brothers. And so he was very upset about that. He didn't want to do it. He was all boo-hoo, pity party. He did that. He writes in here, he tells me about how after he got his vasectomy, I must have been 3 at this time. I came up into the room and I was curious as to why he was hurt. And instead of being like a normal human being and saying, I just had a little procedure, it's going to heal, we're going to be fine, and just move on, he says, in spite of your mother, I show you the wound. So he shows me his private area, in spite of my mother, is what he said. And I think that that's probably the beginning of, that type of stuff, somewhat of the grooming process. Because then he said that there was another time that I was curious, and since he had shown me that area, I don't know if I asked to see it, I don't know, but he said that I started touching him and that he let me do it, and that he led us down a dark path. And it really baffled me, and it made me sick. And like the family that I nanny for, I let, everybody I know read the letters, because that's also a little bit of a reassurance for me. Like, I'm not crazy. He is really this sick. And especially just seeing other people's reactions to it, it's not normal. It's not normal. And yeah, I guess after I received that, I told my dad, because I wasn't engaged at this time, but I was with my current fiance. And after reading that last letter, I told him, definitely, you're not going to walk me down the aisle. You're not going to be at my wedding. You're not meeting my children. I just re-solidified that. Because it's just, I don't know, sickening. Some words of advice or encouragement or anything that might help somebody that's going through CSA or incest, and honestly, especially incest, because it's such a taboo subject. People don't talk about it. You need to know that just because they're your family member does not mean that you need to protect them, does not mean that you need to have a relationship with them. You are not obligated to have a relationship with them. And also, I know it takes time. It took me 19 years to be ready to talk about it, but maybe if somebody could talk about it earlier, you could possibly prevent it from happening to somebody else. You can help yourself with going through that healing process a little sooner. But don't be afraid to confide in your family and friends. I know friends that's the first place that I went, because that was the easiest and it was definitely beneficial. But telling my family, that was the catalyst. That was the big point. That was the big thing that I needed to do. And you are not responsible, no matter what manipulation they put you through to make you feel responsible. You are not, and you do not need to feel ashamed. Speak out. It's not your fault. You're not responsible. And you deserve justice. You deserve to, even if you don't, I didn't take it to the police. I didn't do anything like that. I still got my own justice. I still got to speak my truth. And the people that are around him, hopefully they know.